This is a lesson for you about respecting everyone.
My feet ached. 6 hours into my shift at Bellinore, and the Friday night crowd showed no signs of slowing. Tables packed shoulder to shoulder, voices rising over clinking glasses, and the soft jazz bleeding from hidden speakers. I'd stopped counting how many times I'd smiled through gritted teeth at demanding customers who snapped their fingers like I was invisible until they needed something. The scent of garlic and simmering marinara clung to my uniform. My white blouse was already stained near the hem from an earlier spill, though I'd tried to hide it beneath my black apron. Tips had been good tonight. They needed to be. Mom's treatment bills weren't going to pay themselves, and my nutrition degree might as well have been printed on tissue paper for all the good it did me now. Table 12 flagged me down. 4 men in expensive suits, the kind that screamed money without trying. I'd served them before, weeks ago. The memory wasn't pleasant. "Welcome back to Bellinore," I said, pulling out my notepad. Professional, distant. "Can I start you gentlemen with drinks?" The one in the center, mid-20s with slicked black hair and cold eyes, looked up slowly. Recognition flickered across his face. Not the good kind. "You." His accent carried traces of Japanese underneath polished American English. "I remember you." I didn't remember his name, but I remembered the attitude. The way he'd sent back 3 perfectly good dishes, claiming each had something wrong when we both knew he just enjoyed watching people scramble. "Of course, sir. What can I get you this evening?" He leaned back in his chair, studying me like I was something he'd scraped off his shoe. His friends exchanged glances, smirks. This wasn't going to end well. "Bring us your most expensive wine." The Barolo. I wrote it down. $300 a bottle. Excellent choice. "I'll be right back with that." His hand shot out, catching my wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, hard enough to stop me. "Actually, I changed my mind. Bring us the Brunello instead. $450. I crossed out the first selection. "Of course." "No, wait." That same cold smile. The Barolo was fine. One of his friends laughed, quiet, mean. My jaw tightened, but I kept my expression neutral. This was a game to him. Power, control, making someone dance because he could. The Barolo. "I'll have it right out." I pulled my wrist free and walked away, feeling their eyes on my back. Burning. Assessing. The wine came from our reserve. I handled the bottle carefully, knowing that if anything went wrong, the cost would come from my tips. From Mom's medication fund. When I returned, the table had gone quiet. Watchful. The man in the center gestured for me to pour. I did. Steady hands, professional movements. The wine caught the light as it filled his glass, deep red like blood. Then his hand moved. Just a quick jerk, like he'd suddenly reached for something. His elbow connected with my arm, and the bottle tilted. Wine splashed across the white tablecloth, spreading like a wound. Drops hit my blouse, my apron, but most of it pooled on the table between us. Clumsy. He said it in Japanese first, then English, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "Look what you did." My hands shook. "Sir, Typical. He switched back to Japanese, saying something that made his friends laugh. I didn't understand the words, but I understood the tone. Contempt. Disgust. He pulled out his wallet, extracting a $100 bill. Then he dropped it on the floor at my feet. "Pick it up." His voice cut through the sudden silence around us. "It's where you belong anyway, on the floor." Heat flooded my face. Not embarrassment. Anger. Pure, white-hot fury that I'd learned to swallow every single shift because I needed this job, needed the money, needed to keep my head down and survive. But something in me cracked. "No." The word came out steady, clear. His eyebrows rose. "What?" I said no. I set the wine bottle down carefully on a nearby station. "I'll get the manager. He can handle this." I turned to walk away. "You'll do what I tell you, or you'll be out of a job by morning." He said it loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. "My father owns half this city. One phone call, and you're finished." My back was to him. I didn't see the movement that followed. Only heard it. The scrape of a chair. Quick footsteps. then a sound like a hand meeting expensive fabric. When I turned, my breath caught. A man stood behind Kenji, both hands fisted in the collar of that expensive suit, lifting him slightly off his feet. Tall, easily over 6 feet, with dark hair swept back from a face carved from stone and shadow. His suit was charcoal, perfectly tailored, and when he moved, it was with the contained grace of something dangerous. I knew him. Everyone who worked at Bellanotte knew him. Alessandro Bellavita. He came in twice a week, always alone, always sat at the back corner table. Never caused problems, never spoke much. Just ate his meal, left a generous tip, and disappeared into the night. The owner had whispered once that Mr. Bellavita was an investor, silent partner, someone very important. Now he held Kenji suspended like a child holding a misbehaving puppy, and the temperature in the room had dropped 10 degrees. My hands flew to my mouth. Shock stole my voice. "In this restaurant," Alessandro said, voice low and controlled, each word precise. "You treat everyone with respect. You learn that now, or I teach you another way." Kenji's face had gone white. His eyes darted around, looking for help that wouldn't come. "Mr. Bellavita, I didn't—" "Don't." One word. Soft as silk, sharp as a blade. The entire restaurant had gone silent. Even the jazz seemed to quiet, though I knew that was impossible. Alessandro's eyes, dark green and intense, flicked to me for just a moment. Something passed between us. A question. "Are you hurt?" I shook my head. "Barely." My hands still covered my mouth. He released Kenji suddenly. The younger man stumbled backward, catching himself on the table. His friends had gone statue still, hands carefully visible, not making any sudden movements. Alessandro picked up the $100 bill from the floor. Then he pulled out his own wallet, extracted 5 more hundreds, and pressed them all into my palm. His fingers were warm, steady, everything I wasn't right now, for the inconvenience. He said quietly, "He won't be returning." Kenji and his friends were already moving, scrambling toward the exit like rats abandoning a sinking ship. Not running, but close. Alessandro watched them go. Then he turned back to me, and I saw it clearly now. Recognition. He knew exactly who Kenji was before he'd intervened. This wasn't impulse. This was choice. He won't return. His voice carried a weight I couldn't quite name, but men like him don't forget. Then he walked back to his table in the corner, sat down, and picked up his wine glass like nothing had happened. But everything had happened. My hands trembled around the money. $600. More than I made in an entire week. The restaurant slowly returned to life around me. Conversations resumed. The jazz swelled. Someone laughed. But I stood frozen, staring at the back of Alessandro Bellavita's head, and feeling like I just stepped onto a path I couldn't see the end of. A path that might save me, or destroy me completely. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Even an hour after closing, after cleaning wine stains from the tablecloth and accepting congratulations from coworkers who'd witnessed the whole thing, my fingers trembled around the $600 tucked in my apron pocket. Marco, the night manager, found me in the staff room. 60 years old, silver hair, tired eyes that had seen too much. He gestured for me to follow him into his cramped office that smelled of espresso and old paperwork. "Sit." I sat. He studied me for a long moment, hands folded on his desk. "You know who that was, don't you?" "The man who intervened. Mr. Bellavita. He comes in twice a week. Alessandro Bellavita." Marco's voice dropped. "He's not just a customer, Camilla. He's a silent partner. Owns 30% of Bellanotte. Has for 3 years. The information settled over me like cold water. I didn't know. Not many people do. He prefers it that way." Marco leaned forward. "What happened tonight? You need to thank him properly, before you leave. He's still here." My stomach twisted. "Marco, I can't." "You can. You will." His tone softened slightly. "He defended you. In our world, that means something. Show respect. Our world. As if I belonged to it. As if I understood the rules of whatever game I'd stumbled into. But I needed this job. So I nodded. Alessandro sat at his usual table, now cleared except for a glass of red wine. The restaurant had emptied, just a few staff cleaning up, their movements deliberately distant, giving him space, or giving us space. I approached slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. He looked up when I was still 10 feet away, as if he'd been tracking my movement the entire time. "Mr. Bellavita," my voice came out steadier than I felt. "I wanted to thank you for what you did tonight. Alessandro." He gestured to the chair across from him. Not a suggestion. A command wrapped in courtesy. I sat. Up close, he was even more striking than I'd realized. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw darkened by stubble, and those eyes, green like deep water, studying me with an intensity that made my skin prickle with awareness. A thin scar traced his jawline, barely visible, old, healed. "You didn't have to intervene," I continued, "but I'm grateful you did." "Yes, I did." Simple. Absolute. Men like Kenji Yamamoto need to be reminded that money doesn't buy immunity from consequences. The way he said Kenji's full name, casual and certain, sent warning signals through my nervous system. "You know him. I know who he is, who his father is, what they do." Alessandro took a slow sip of wine. "Do you?" I shook my head. "Hiroshi Yamamoto runs the Yamaguchi Gumi operations in New York, one of the most powerful Yakuza families on the East Coast." He set his glass down with deliberate care. "His son is a spoiled child playing at being dangerous, but the family name still carries weight." My throat went dry. "Then why did you—" "Because what he did was unacceptable. Because you deserve better than to be humiliated in your own workplace." His gaze never left mine. "Because some things are worth the complications they create." The air between us felt charged, electric, like standing too close to a live wire. Am I in danger? The question escaped before I could stop it. Alessandro's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. From Kenji? Possibly. From me? That ghost of a smile appeared, dark and knowing. Extremely, but not in the way you think. Heat flooded my cheeks. I stood abruptly. "I should go. Thank you again." His hand caught my wrist, not hard, just enough to stop me. His skin was warm, his grip firm but careful. "Camilla." My name in his mouth did something to my pulse. "If anything happens, anything that makes you uncomfortable or afraid, you call me." He released me, pulling a business card from his jacket. Thick cream paper, embossed lettering. Just his name and a phone number. Day or night. Understood. I took the card, our fingers brushing. Understood. Walking away felt like wading through deep water. His presence pulled at me, magnetic and terrifying. The subway ride to Hell's Kitchen took 40 minutes. Long enough for adrenaline to fade, replaced by bone-deep exhaustion and a growing sense of unreality. Had tonight actually happened? Had Alessandro Bellavita, silent partner and apparent crime lord, really defended me against a Yakuza heir? My tiny apartment welcomed me with its familiar shabbiness. Cracked tiles in the bathroom, paint peeling near the windows, furniture from thrift stores and sidewalk finds. But it was mine. Paid for with my own money, my own sweat. I collapsed on the second-hand couch, still in my uniform, and stared at the ceiling until my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The text made my blood freeze. "Careful who you accept protection from. Not all saviors are heroes." My hand shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I read it again. Then again. Someone was watching. Someone who knew what had happened tonight. Someone who wanted me afraid. I should call the police. Report the threat. But what would I say? That a man I didn't know had sent a cryptic warning after another man defended me from public humiliation? Before I could decide, my apartment buzzer rang. At 1 a.m, terror spiked through my exhaustion. I stood frozen, staring at the intercom. It buzzed again, insistent. I pressed the button. Who is it? Camila Torres? A woman's voice. Young. Confident. "My name is Sophia. I'm a friend of my brother's. Alessandro sent me to check that you got home safely." Relief and suspicion warred in my chest. "I'm fine. Can I come up? Just for a moment. I promise I'm not here to cause problems." Something in her tone, warm but genuine, made me buzz her in. Sofia Bellavita looked nothing like her brother. Petite, maybe 5'4", with long dark hair and striking features softened by an easy smile. She wore designer jeans and a leather jacket that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Sorry about the late hour. She stepped inside when I opened the door, scanning my apartment with quick efficiency. Not judging, assessing. Alessandro gets protective. It's annoying but usually well-intentioned. You're his sister. Unfortunately, but she said it with affection. And you're the waitress who made him lose his composure in the middle of Bella Nota. That's impressive. He's usually better at keeping his reactions hidden. I closed the door, suddenly conscious of the stained uniform, my tangled hair, the exhaustion pulling at my features. I didn't ask him to intervene. No, you didn't. That's probably why he did. Sofia settled onto my couch like she belonged there. Can we talk? Just for a few minutes? I wanted to refuse, wanted to kick her out and pretend tonight had never happened. Instead, I sat in the armchair across from her. About what? About the text you just received. My spine went rigid. How do you... Alessandro has people watching your building. They saw Kenji's associate leaving after placing a tracker on your phone line. She held up a hand before I could explode. It's been removed. The message was traced to a burner phone purchased this afternoon in Queens. We know it came from someone in Kenji's circle. The casual way she said we, like surveillance and tracking were normal conversation topics, made me lightheaded. This is insane. I pressed my palms against my eyes. I'm a waitress. I make minimum wage plus tips. I have student loans and medical bills and a mother with cancer. I don't belong in whatever world this is. No, you don't. Sofia's voice gentled. But you're in it now. And my brother, for better or worse, has decided you're under his protection. That means Kenji Yamamoto will think twice before escalating things. But he sent the message anyway. A warning, posturing, testing boundaries. She leaned forward. Kenji is a coward, Camila. He attacks people who can't fight back. Now that Alessandro has marked you as protected, Kenji has to decide if pushing further is worth the consequences. Marked me. Like property. Like territory. I didn't ask for any of this. I know. Sofia stood, pulling out her own card. But it's happening anyway. Call me if you need anything. Girl to girl, no Alessandro involved. Though fair warning, he'll find out eventually anyway. He always does. She left as quickly as she'd arrived, leaving me alone with too many questions and not nearly enough answers. I showered, changed into pajamas, and tried to sleep. Failed. My mind kept replaying Alessandro's hand on my wrist, his voice saying my name, the way he'd looked at me like I was something worth protecting, worth complicating his life for. Dawn crept through my thin curtains, gray and unwelcome. I hadn't slept. Just lay there, staring at 2 business cards on my nightstand, wondering how a single night could tilt my entire world sideways. And knowing somehow that this was only the beginning. 4 days crawled by. 4 days of jumping at shadows, checking my phone obsessively, scanning every face that walked into Bella Notte, waiting for something terrible that never came. Or maybe just hadn't arrived yet. The flowers appeared on day 3. White roses, 2 dozen, delivered to the restaurant during lunch rush. The card read, "Apologies for the disruption. A.B." Formal. Distant. As if he hadn't grabbed a man by the collar and changed the trajectory of my entire life. I'd almost convinced myself to throw them away. Almost. Instead, I brought them home, set them on my kitchen counter, and tried not to think about green eyes and dangerous promises. Day 4, Alessandro returned. I spotted him the moment he walked through the door. 8 o'clock, dinner service in full swing, and somehow the restaurant quieted around him. Not silence. Just a subtle shift, like everyone unconsciously making space for something powerful moving through their midst. He wore charcoal tonight, 3-piece suit tailored to perfection, and when his eyes found mine across the crowded dining room, my breath caught. Marco intercepted me before I could reach him. Table 6. He requested you specifically. Marco, it's not a request, Camilla. It's good business. But his eyes were kind, concerned. Just take his order. Be professional. Alessandro had chosen a quieter corner this time, not his usual back table. More intimate. less visible to prying eyes. I approached with my notepad clutched like armor. "Good evening, Mr. Bellavita. Can I start you with something to drink? Alessandro?" He gestured to the seat across from him. "Please." I glanced around. Marco was watching. 2 other servers had found reasons to hover nearby. "I'm working." "Then consider this work." That same tone, not quite command, not quite request. Something in between that made refusing feel impossible. I sat, perched on the edge of the chair, spine rigid, notepad in hand. "How have you been?" he asked, as casual as if we were old friends catching up over coffee. "Fine." "Liar." But he said it gently. "You've barely slept." I can see it. Heat flooded my cheeks. "How would you know?" "Because men who send threatening messages rarely stop at one." He leaned forward slightly. "Has there been anything else? Any other contact from Kenji or his people?" "No. Just the flowers from you." Something flickered across his expression. Satisfaction, maybe. "Good. That means my message was received." "What message?" "That you're under protection. That touching you would be unwise." He said it so matter-of-factly, like declaring the weather. "Tell me about yourself, Camilla. You're 26, you work here 6 nights a week, and you're too educated to be serving tables. So why are you?" The abrupt shift threw me off balance. "How do you know how old I am?" I asked Marco. He didn't look remotely apologetic. "Now answer the question." I should have refused, should have stood up and walked away. But something about the directness, the lack of pretense, made me answer honestly. "I have a nutrition degree from Hunter College. Graduated 3 years ago with honors and a mountain of student debt. And yet you're waitressing." "My mother got sick 2 years ago. Cancer. The experimental treatments she needs aren't covered by insurance, and the bills..." I stopped, realizing I was sharing too much with a man I barely knew. A dangerous man. I do what I have to do. Alessandro was quiet for a long moment, studying me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "What kind of cancer?" "Stage 3 breast cancer. She's responding to treatment, but it's expensive. 80,000 so far and counting." "And your father?" "Never knew him. It's always been just me and my mom." I set down the notepad. "Why are you asking me this?" "Because I want to know you." Simple, direct, devastating. Because most people would have taken that money Kenji threw on the floor, would have swallowed their pride and picked it up, but you didn't. I'm not most people. No. His voice dropped, softer now. "Intimate. You're not." A server appeared at Alessandro's elbow, breaking the moment. He ordered without looking at the menu, something in Italian that I didn't catch, and waved the server away. "I know the best oncologist in New York," he said once we were alone again. "Dr. Rachel Chen at Memorial Sloan Kettering. She owes me a favor. I could make a call." "No." The word came out sharper than intended. "Thank you, but no. Camilla, I'm not telling you about my mother so you'll fix it. I'm not looking for a handout or a favor or whatever this is." I stood, pulse hammering. "I appreciate what you did the other night. Truly. But I can handle my own problems." He stood too, smooth and unhurried, closing the distance between us until I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "Can you? Because from where I'm standing, you're drowning. Working yourself to exhaustion for medical bills that will take years to pay off, if you ever can. That's not strength, Camilla. That's stubbornness. Maybe." I lifted my chin. "But it's my stubbornness, my choice." Something shifted in his expression. Respect, perhaps. Or understanding. He reached into his jacket, pulled out another card, pressed it into my palm. "When you're ready to accept help without shame, call me." He left cash on the table for a meal he hadn't eaten, and walked out without looking back. I stood there holding his card, hands trembling, hating how much I wanted to use it. The next 3 days passed in exhausted monotony. Work, sleep, visit mom at the hospital during my breaks, repeat. She was stable, responding well to the current treatment cycle. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. Then the call came. 2 a.m, my phone screaming me awake from dreams filled with green eyes and dangerous promises. The hospital. Emergency. Mom's vitals had crashed. They were rushing her into emergency surgery. There were complications. She needed a specialized procedure that would cost $75,000, and they needed authorization within the hour. $75,000. I had $800 in my checking account. The hospital financial counselor was sympathetic but firm. Without payment guarantee, they couldn't proceed. Without the procedure, Mom would die. I sat in the sterile waiting room, phone clutched and shaking hands, and stared at Alessandro's card. Pride was a luxury I couldn't afford. Not anymore. I dialed. He answered on the first ring. Camila. Not a question. He knew it was me. My voice broke. I pressed my palm against my mouth, trying to hold back the sob building in my chest. I need help. What hospital? Mount Sinai. But Alessandro, it's 75,000. I'm on my way. Don't sign anything until I get there. He hung up before I could respond. I don't know how long I sat there, wrapped in shock and desperation, and something dangerously close to hope. Time stretched and contracted. Nurses moved past. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead like insects. Then he was there, striding through the emergency room entrance in dark jeans and a black shirt, hair slightly mussed like he'd dressed quickly. He spotted me immediately, crossed the space between us in long, purposeful strides. Where? One word. I gestured mutely toward the administrative offices. What happened next passed in a blur. Alessandro spoke to the financial counselor, made a phone call, and within 10 minutes everything was authorized. Paid in full. Mom was being prepped for surgery. I tried to thank him. Tried to form words through the tears streaming down my face. He caught one with his thumb, the touch scorching against my skin. You don't owe me anything, he said quietly. But accept the dinner invitation. Let me take you somewhere that isn't a hospital or restaurant. Let me know you properly. I nodded, because I couldn't speak. Couldn't process that he'd just saved my mother's life without hesitation, without questions, without demands. Tomorrow night, he continued. 7 o'clock. I'll have Sophia pick you up. Then he was gone, disappearing back into the night, leaving me standing in a hospital waiting room with my world tilted completely sideways. And for the first time in years, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, accepting help wasn't the same as giving up control. Maybe it was just being human. Sophia arrived precisely at 7, driving a sleek silver Mercedes that looked out of place on my Hell's Kitchen street. She stepped out wearing dark jeans and a cashmere sweater, looking effortlessly elegant in a way I'd never manage even if I had her money. Ready? Her smile was warm, genuine, not the practiced politeness I'd expected. I glanced down at my own outfit. The nicest dress I owned, navy blue and simple, paired with worn ballet flats, as ready as I'll ever be. The drive took 40 minutes, winding north out of Manhattan toward Long Island. Sophia filled the silence with easy conversation, asking about Mom's recovery, my work at Bella Notte, carefully avoiding the elephant in the car until we hit the highway. My brother is complicated. She said it like a confession. When he cares about someone, it's absolute, complete. There's no half measure with Alessandro. Is that a warning? An observation? She glanced at me, dark eyes sharp. But yes, also a warning. His world is dangerous, Camilla. Not just physically, emotionally. You get close to him, and everything changes. There's no going back. My hands twisted in my lap. What if I don't want to get close? Then you shouldn't have said yes to dinner. But her tone was kind, understanding. He doesn't invite people to Manhasset. This house, it's his sanctuary. The fact that he's bringing you there means something. The mansion appeared through a break in the trees, all clean lines and modern architecture that somehow blended perfectly with the natural surroundings. Stone and glass catching the fading sunlight, expansive windows overlooking Long Island Sound. Not ostentatious, just quietly, confidently expensive. Alessandro waited on the front steps, and the sight of him stole my breath. No suit tonight. Just dark jeans and a white linen shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing strong forearms marked with faint scars. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd recently showered. More relaxed than I'd ever seen him. More dangerous because of it. Thank you, Sophia. He helped me from the car, his hand warm and steady against mine. Behave, Sophia called as she drove away. leaving me alone with him. "Come." Alessandro's hand found the small of my back, guiding me inside. The touch burned through thin fabric, proprietary and protective at once. The interior took my breath away. High ceilings, polished hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows framing water views. But it wasn't cold or sterile. Books lined built-in shelves, comfortable furniture invited lingering, and the scent of cooking food filled the air. "You cooked?" I couldn't hide my surprise. "I find it calming." He led me to a kitchen that belonged in a magazine. Granite countertops, professional-grade appliances, herbs growing in small pots on the windowsill. "I hope you like Italian. I work in an Italian restaurant." "That doesn't answer the question." That ghost of a smile appeared. "I love Italian food." He pulled out a stool at the island counter. "Sit. Talk to me while I finish." I watched him work, mesmerized by the confidence in his movements, tasting sauce, adjusting seasoning, plating with care. This man who held people by their collar and commanded fear now concentrated on making sure the pasta was perfectly al dente. "How did you learn to cook?" I asked. "My mother. She insisted all her children know how to feed themselves properly." He glanced up, something soft crossing his expression. "She died when I was 24. Car accident. My father went 6 months later. Heart attack, the doctor said. But I think it was grief. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago." He set a plate before me. Fresh pasta with a light cream sauce, perfectly seared scallops, delicate and beautiful. I became head of the family business at 24, barely older than a child, trying to fill my father's shoes. I took a bite. The food was extraordinary, melt-in-your-mouth perfection. "What kind of business?" Alessandro sat across from me, his own plate untouched. "Import-export, real estate, various investments. All truths that probably concealed deeper, darker truths. What about you, Camilla? What did you dream of before life got complicated?" The question caught me off guard. I wanted to open a wellness cafe, healthy food that actually tasted good, nutrition counseling, cooking classes, help people learn that taking care of themselves doesn't have to be expensive or difficult. That's a beautiful dream. It's an impossible dream now. I set down my fork. Between student loans and mom's medical bills, I'll be paying off debt until I'm 50. Nothing is impossible. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. Just delayed. The touch sent electricity up my arm. I should have pulled away. Didn't. You didn't abandon your dreams, Camilla. You postponed them out of love. That's not weakness. That's the strongest thing a person can do. Tears pricked my eyes. No one had ever framed it that way before. Everyone else saw sacrifice and failure. He saw strength. We finished dinner with easier conversation, trading stories about growing up in New York, favorite books, music that made us think or feel or remember. He was surprisingly well-read, quoting poetry between bites of pasta, discussing philosophy like he'd spent years studying it. "Come." Alessandro stood, offering his hand. "I want to show you something." He led me through the house to a room lined entirely with books. Floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with volumes in multiple languages, comfortable leather chairs positioned near windows overlooking the water, a reader's paradise. "This is incredible." I moved toward the shelves, fingers trailing over spines. Classic literature mixed with modern fiction, history texts beside poetry collections. I spend most of my time here when I'm at the house. He stood close behind me, his presence warming my back. It's the one place I can be just Alessandro. Not the boss, not the heir to a legacy I never asked for. Just a man who likes to read. I turned, found him closer than expected. His eyes, dark green in the soft lighting, held mine with an intensity that made breathing difficult. "Camilla." My name was almost a question. "May I kiss you?" The fact that he asked, that this powerful man who commanded others without hesitation was requesting permission, undid something in me. Yes. His hand cupped my jaw, thumb tracing my cheekbone with exquisite gentleness. Then his mouth met mine, and the world tilted sideways. The kiss was controlled but passionate. Restrained power held carefully in check. His other hand found my waist, pulling me closer until no space remained between us. I gripped his shoulders, needing something solid to anchor me as heat flooded through my body. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. I've wanted to do that since the moment I saw you refuse to pick up that money, he murmured. Before I could respond, heavy footsteps sounded in the hallway. A man appeared in the doorway, tall and broad with military bearing. He took in the scene, his expression carefully neutral. "Boss, we have a situation." Alessandro's entire demeanor shifted. The tender man vanished, replaced by someone cold and lethal. "What kind of situation, Vincent?" "The club in the Bronx. Attacked about an hour ago. 3 of our people injured, 2 seriously. I tried to handle it, but it's escalating. They want you there." Alessandro's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping beneath the skin. His hand still rested on my waist, but the touch had changed. Possessive, now. Protective. Kenji? His people. Definitely. My blood went cold. This was my fault. Because Alessandro had defended me, because he'd marked me as protected. Now his people were hurt. I need to go. Alessandro turned back to me, and I saw it clearly. The transformation from man to dawn, from dinner companion to crime lord. "Vincent will take you home. Alessandro, you're in the center of this now, Camila. Whether you wanted to be or not, and I will protect you. I will protect what's mine." He cupped my face, kissed me once more, hard and claiming. "Trust me." Then he was gone, striding from the room with Vincent at his heels, leaving me standing alone in his library with my lips still burning and my world irrevocably changed. Vincent drove in silence, professional and distant. I sat in the back of the black Mercedes, watching streetlights blur past, my lips still tingling from Alessandro's kiss, from his declaration, his claim. "You're in the center of this now." The words echoed in my head, mixing with the memory of violence in Kenji's eyes, the threat in that text message, the reality that people had been hurt because a powerful man had decided I was worth defending. My apartment felt too small when I finally climbed the stairs, too exposed. I double-checked the locks, drew the curtains, and sat on the couch with my phone clutched in trembling hands. Sleep was impossible. I tried. Lay in bed staring at the ceiling, jumping at every sound. Footsteps in the hallway, a car door slamming, the building settling around me. At 3 a.m, I gave up and opened my laptop, searched Alessandro's name. Alessandro Bellavita, 34. CEO of Bellavita Imports and various real estate holdings. Family business established in New York for 5 generations. No criminal record, no scandals, just carefully worded articles that mentioned business interests and community involvement, without ever saying what those interests truly were. I dug deeper, found older articles about his father's death, his mother's accident, the way Alessandro had taken over at 24, impossibly young, and somehow not just survived, but thrived. Built an empire, commanded loyalty, the kind of loyalty that sent men to attack a club because their boss had been disrespected. My phone rang at 6 a.m, jerking me from the half-doze I'd finally fallen into. "Sophia, did you sleep?" "No. Good instinct. Can I come up? I have coffee and answers." She arrived 10 minutes later with 2 large lattes and dark circles under her eyes that matched my own. We sat at my tiny kitchen table, and she looked at me with something like pity. "You want to know what you've gotten yourself into?" "I want to know if I should run." "Too late for that." But she said it gently. "My brother is Don of the Bellavita family. 5th-generation Italian organized crime with roots going back to Sicily. We handle imports, territory disputes, protection services, and various other enterprises that exist in gray areas. We're not the Yakuza. We have rules, codes, limits, but we're not exactly law-abiding citizens either." The words settled over me like concrete. Heavy, suffocating, real. "And Kenji?" "Kenji Yamamoto is the spoiled, violent son of Hiroshi Yamamoto, who runs Yakuza operations in New York. He's a coward and a bully, but his father's name carries weight. Alessandro defending you publicly wasn't just chivalry, Camilla. It was a statement. You belong to him now. You're under Bellavita protection. I don't belong to anyone. I know. And honestly, Sophia leaned forward. That's probably why he's so fascinated with you. Most people in our world understand ownership, territory, claims. You push back. You challenge him. That's rare. My hands wrapped around the coffee cup, seeking warmth I couldn't seem to find. What happens now? Now Alessandro has to decide how to handle the escalation. Kenji attacked one of our businesses. That demands response. But it's complicated because Hiroshi is old guard, traditional. If Alessandro retaliates too harshly, it could spark a war neither family wants. I thought about Alessandro's face when Vincent had interrupted. The cold fury, the lethal control. And me, you're the reason this started. Which means your leverage, insurance, a target. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. But Alessandro won't let anything happen to you. I've never seen him like this, Camilla. He's protective to the point of obsession. The next knock came an hour after Sophia left. Not the buzzer. Direct pounding on my apartment door that made my heart stop. I looked through the peephole. Alessandro stood in the hallway, still in the same clothes from last night, looking exhausted and dangerous and devastatingly focused. I opened the door. He stepped inside, closed it behind him, and pulled me into his arms without a word. Just held me, his face buried in my hair, his breath warm against my neck. Are you hurt? I asked. No. His voice was rough, tired. The injured men will recover. The club has damage, but nothing that can't be fixed. It was a message, not an actual attempt to destroy anything. He pulled back, cupping my face in both hands. I put men on your building last night. 3 of them. Rotating shifts. You're being watched 24 hours. Something in me snapped. All the fear, exhaustion, and anger from the past 12 hours crystallized into white-hot fury. I stepped out of his hold. You what? I'm protecting you. You're suffocating me. My voice shook. I didn't ask for guards. I didn't ask to be watched. I didn't ask for any of this, Alessandro. His expression darkened. You're in danger because of me. Because I chose to defend you. That makes your safety my responsibility. I'm not your responsibility. I'm not your possession. I'm not some helpless thing that needs constant surveillance. I crossed my arms, holding myself together. You're doing to me exactly what Kenji tried to do. Controlling me. Making decisions for me. The only difference is, you're doing it while claiming its protection. He went very still. Dangerously still. When he spoke, his voice was soft. Lethal. Don't compare me to him. Then don't act like him. I held his gaze, even though every instinct screamed at me to back down. I understand you're trying to help. I understand the danger is real. But if this, whatever this is between us, is going to work, you can't just make decisions about my life without asking me first. You want me to ask permission to keep you alive? I want you to treat me like a partner, not a prisoner. My throat tightened. I'm choosing to be here, Alessandro. Choosing to accept the risks that come with being close to you. But that has to be my choice. Not something you force on me because you've decided what's best. The silence stretched between us, taut as a wire. I watched emotions flicker across his face. Anger, frustration. Something that looked almost like fear. Then he exhaled slowly, his shoulders dropping. You're right. I'm what? Right. He moved closer, but didn't touch me. Gave me space even as every line of his body screamed that he wanted to pull me close. I'm learning how to care about someone who isn't part of this world. Someone who doesn't understand how we operate. And I'm doing it badly. His hand lifted, hovering near my cheek before dropping. I just watched men get hurt because I let myself care about you. The first thing I thought wasn't about retribution or territory or politics. It was that if they'd gone after you instead, if something had happened to you while I was comfortable in my house, I would burn this entire city down. The raw honesty in his voice made my anger falter. I'm terrified, he continued, of losing you before I've even really had you, of watching you get hurt because of my choices, my world, my enemies. So yes, I'm being overprotective, controlling, everything you said. But it comes from a place of absolute terror, not disrespect. I reached up, touching his face, feeling the stubble, the tension in his jaw. Then work with me, not around me. Let me have some agency in this situation. Even if it's just the illusion of control. I can do that. He turned his head, pressing a kiss to my palm. But you have to meet me halfway. Let me keep you safe in ways that don't make you feel caged. Trust that I'm not trying to own you. Just trying to keep you alive long enough to know you properly. Deal. I leaned forward, resting my forehead against his chest, feeling his heartbeat, steady and strong. But Alessandro, we need to talk about what happens next, because hiding me away isn't going to stop Kenji. It's just going to escalate things. His arms came around me finally, solid and warm and protective without being suffocating. I know. Which is why we need to move your mother somewhere safer. Somewhere Kenji can't use her as leverage against you. Move her where? My property in Manhasset has a medical suite. 24-hour nursing staff. Top-of-the-line equipment. She'll be comfortable and safe. The offer was too much. Too generous. Too everything. Alessandro, this isn't charity. It's strategy. But his voice was gentle. You're part of my world now, whether we like it or not. That means the people you love become targets. Your mother is vulnerable in a public hospital. Let me protect her the same way I'm protecting you. Tears burned my eyes. I can't keep accepting help from you without giving anything back. Then give me your time, your trust, your willingness to let me figure out how to be what you need while staying who I am. He tipped my chin up, meeting my eyes. That's all I want, Camilla. The chance to prove I'm worth the risk you're taking. I kissed him, poured everything I couldn't say into the pressure of my lips against his. Fear and hope and desperate need all tangled together. When we broke apart, I nodded. Okay. We'll move my mother. We'll do this your way. But I need something too. Name it. Teach me to defend myself. If I'm going to be in your world, I need to be able to protect myself. Not just rely on guards and surveillance. Something like pride flickered in his eyes. Vincent can train you. Former military, highly skilled. He'll teach you everything you need to know. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. He pulled me close again, holding me like I was something precious. Something worth fighting for. This is only the beginning, Camilla. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. I know. I breathed him in, cedar and smoke and something uniquely him. But I'm not running. Good. His lips brushed my temple. Because I wouldn't let you go anyway. 3 days passed in a strange new normal that felt both surreal and oddly right. Mom settled into the medical suite at Alessandro's Manhasset estate, her color improving daily with round-the-clock care I could never have afforded in a lifetime of saving. The nurses were professional, kind, treating her like she mattered rather than just another patient in an overworked system. I split my time between visiting her and training with Vincent, who proved to be a patient if demanding instructor in basic self-defense. He taught me how to break holds, where to strike to incapacitate an attacker, how to stay aware of my surroundings. Skills I prayed I'd never need, but felt strangely empowered learning. Alessandro was gone more than present, handling what he called delicate negotiations. I understood what that meant. He was meeting with Hiroshi Yamamoto, trying to resolve this mess without triggering a full-scale war between their organizations. The weight of it showed in the brief phone calls we managed, his voice strained with exhaustion, even as he asked about my day with genuine interest. I returned to Bellanotte on day 4, needing the normalcy of work, even though nothing felt normal anymore. The familiar rhythm of taking orders, delivering plates, navigating the dinner rush. Marco welcomed me back with knowing eyes and no questions. The other servers whispered when they thought I couldn't hear, casting glances my way that mixed curiosity with caution. Everyone knew something had changed, that I was under Bellavita protection now, that I belonged to Alessandro in ways that made me both safer and more dangerous to be near. During my afternoon break, I sat in the cramped staff room with my phone, scrolling through messages from Sophia about Mom's progress. The nurses had her walking short distances now. Her appetite had returned. Small victories that felt monumental after months of watching her fade. That's when Danny, one of the bussers, stuck his head through the doorway. 22, trying to save for culinary school, always friendly. His face held cautious excitement. Hey, Camilla? You were asking about that Japanese guy who caused trouble last week, right? The one Mr. Bellavita dealt with? My pulse quickened. I'd been quietly questioning staff for days, trying to gather information, playing the role Alessandro and I had discussed. Active participant, not passive victim. Learning to navigate this world by contributing rather than just accepting protection. Yeah. Why? My cousin works security at a warehouse complex in Maspeth, near LaGuardia Airport. Says he's seen a guy matching that description hanging around the past few days. Asian, expensive clothes, acts like he owns the place but seems nervous. Keeps looking over his shoulder. Been there 3 days straight. Always with some rough-looking dudes. Russians, my cousin thinks. Everything in me went still. Russians. Mercenaries. Exactly what Alessandro had warned about. Which warehouse? Danny pulled out his phone, showed me a location pin. Industrial area, lots of abandoned buildings. The kind of place people went when they didn't want to be found. My cousin says they're in the old textile factory. Big brick building, most of the windows broken out. Nobody's used it in years. Thanks, Danny. I really appreciate this. No problem. Just be careful, okay? Those dudes looked seriously dangerous. I called Alessandro the moment I was alone in the supply closet, heart hammering against my ribs. He answered on the first ring like he'd been waiting for my call. Camilla, I have something. I explained quickly, precisely, keeping my voice low. Danny's information, the location, the timeline, the Russians. It matches Kenji's profile perfectly. He's hiding, but not well enough. Silence on the other end. I could almost hear him thinking, calculating, planning. Then, you're certain about this source? Danny's cousin has worked security there for 2 years. He knows the area, knows what normal looks like. This isn't normal. Good work. Pride colored his voice, warming something in my chest. You've done exactly what I needed. Now let me handle the rest. I'm sending Sophia to bring you to the estate immediately. Alessandro. Please, Camilla. His voice dropped, urgent. Raw. Trust me on this. You've given me the advantage I needed. Now let me use it to end this before anyone else gets hurt. Before Kenji decides to escalate in ways we can't predict. I wanted to argue. Wanted to demand to be part of whatever came next. But the fear underneath his command stopped me. He wasn't just being overprotective. He was terrified of losing me. Okay. I trust you. Thank you. He exhaled slowly. I'll call you when it's done. The line went dead, leaving me standing in a supply closet between stacks of napkins and cleaning supplies, having just helped set in motion something that would either end this nightmare or make it infinitely worse. That evening, sitting in the Manhasset library while Alessandro was God knows where doing God knows what, Mom found me. She moved slowly, still recovering, but her eyes were sharp, knowing. She'd always been able to read me like an open book. Tell me about him. She settled into the leather chair across from mine, wrapping a cashmere throw around her shoulders. The throw Sophia had brought her, soft and expensive. Everything here was soft and expensive. This Alessandro who's given me a palace to recover in, who's put that look in your eyes. Mom, don't deflect, sweetheart. I'm your mother. I see how you look when his name comes up. How you check your phone constantly, jumping every time it buzzes. How you haven't slept properly in days. She reached out, taking my hand in hers. Thinner than before the illness, but steady. Strong. Do you love him? The question hung between us, direct, unavoidable, terrifying in its simplicity. Did I love Alessandro Bellavita? The man who defended me with controlled violence, who paid my mother's medical bills without hesitation, who kissed me like I was oxygen and held me like I was precious. The crime lord who commanded fear and loyalty in equal measure. The complicated, dangerous, surprisingly tender man who cooked me dinner and quoted poetry and looked at me like I was something worth fighting for. Yes, the word emerged as barely a whisper. God help me. But yes, I love him. Mom's expression softened. Not judgment. Understanding. Then whatever comes next, you face it together. That's what love means, sweetheart. Not running from the hard parts. Not hiding from the danger. Walking through fire holding hands. Trusting that neither of you will let go. Tears pricked my eyes. What if the fire burns us both? Then you burn together. But something tells me that man won't let anything happen to you. I've seen the way Sophia talks about him. The way everyone here moves when his name is mentioned. He's powerful, yes. Dangerous, absolutely. But he's also completely devoted to protecting what he loves. And he loves you, Camilla. Even I can see that. Later, long after Mom had gone back to her room to rest, Alessandro called. Not the usual brief check-in, but a longer conversation. He told me about his meeting with Hiroshi Yamamoto earlier that day, voice heavy with exhaustion, but edged with something like relief. He's an old-school traditionalist, honorable in ways his son will never understand or appreciate. Alessandro's voice carried the weariness of someone who'd spent hours in tense negotiations. Kenji has a history. Ran from Tokyo after offending a high-ranking oyabun. Disrespected someone untouchable. Nearly started a war between families. Hiroshi sent him here hoping distance and time would mature him, teach him respect. It didn't. If anything, being away from direct supervision made him worse. What happens now? We made a deal. Kenji returns to Japan. Enters a Buddhist monastery in Kyoto for a year. Under Hiroshi's direct supervision. Meditation. Discipline. Learning the humility his father should have taught him years ago. He also makes a public apology to you at Bella Notte, witnessed by both families. If he refuses either condition, Hiroshi has given me permission to handle it my way. The clinical way he said it made my skin prickle with understanding of what my way meant. And if he's already refusing by hiding in that warehouse, then I go get him tonight. Convince him that apologizing to you and accepting his father's punishment is vastly preferable to the alternative. A pause, weighted with meaning. Your information was crucial, Camilla. We've had people watching that area since you called. It's definitely him. He's hired independent Russian mercenaries, paying them from offshore accounts he apparently kept hidden from his father. Smart enough to cover his tracks financially, but not smart enough to hide his location properly. Independent. Does that matter? It means when we move on him, it won't trigger automatic retaliation from the Bratva. These are freelancers, not official operators. We can negotiate compensation for any casualties and avoid a larger conflict. It keeps this contained to just our families. His voice softened, carrying something like pride. You're learning the politics of this world quickly. I have a good teacher, or maybe just strong motivation to understand what I'm dealing with. Maybe both. I could hear the exhaustion dragging at him, but also the warmth, the affection he rarely voiced, but showed in countless small ways. Come back safe, Alessandro. Whatever you're planning with Kenji tonight, whatever happens in that warehouse, just come back to me. Always. It sounded like a vow. A promise carved in stone. I have too much to lose now. You've become my reason, Camilla. My reason to be careful, to think beyond just territory and honor and tradition. To want a future that includes something other than violence and endless wars. You make me want to be more than just Don Bellavita. You make me want to be just Alessandro. Just a man who loves a woman. Tears burned my eyes, spilling over before I could stop them. I love you. The words hung in the air between us, crackling through the phone connection. I hadn't meant to say them. Not yet. Not like this. Over the phone while he was preparing for what was essentially a kidnapping and forced negotiation mission. Say that again. His voice roughened with emotion I'd never heard before. Vulnerable. Almost desperate. I love you, Alessandro Bellavita. Despite the insanity. Despite the danger. Despite every rational reason I shouldn't. Despite knowing this could end in heartbreak or worse. I love you. Hold that thought. His voice dropped to something intimate, promising. Because when I get back, when this is finished and Kenji is dealt with, I'm going to spend a very long time showing you exactly how I feel about you. How you've changed everything for me. How you make me want to be better than I am. He hung up before I could respond, leaving me in the library with my racing heart and the terrifying, exhilarating reality that I'd just admitted the deepest truth. That I loved a man who lived in shadows. Who commanded violence with the same hands that held me tenderly. Sophia found me an hour later, still curled in the chair, phone clutched in my hand like a lifeline. She carried 2 mugs of tea, settling into the chair Mom had occupied earlier. He'll be okay. She offered 1 mug, the the steam carrying hints of chamomile and honey. Alessandro has been doing this since he was 24. He knows how to survive, how to win, how to come home. That doesn't make waiting easier. No. She smiled sadly, knowingly. It doesn't. Welcome to loving a bella vita, Camilla. The worry never goes away. You just learn to live with it. Learn to trust that they know what they're doing, that they're as careful as they can be in a world that doesn't reward careful. Outside, night fell over Long Island Sound, the water turning dark and mysterious under the moon. Somewhere in Queens, in an industrial warehouse near LaGuardia Airport, Alessandro was moving on Kenji Yamamoto, ending this threat, protecting me, risking himself and his men. And all I could do was wait and trust and pray that the man I loved would come back to me whole, that we'd get our chance at whatever future we were building together, one dangerous day at a time. That love would be enough to survive the fire we were both walking through. The call came at 3 a.m. Alessandro's voice, rough with exhaustion but alive. Whole. It's done. We have him. Relief flooded through me so powerfully my knees buckled. I sank onto the bed, phone pressed against my ear. Are you hurt? Bruised, nothing serious. Kenji tried to run. His mercenaries put up a fight, but once they realized we weren't there to kill them, just capture Kenji, most surrendered. Smart men know when to fold. He exhaled slowly. I'm coming home. Wait for me. He arrived as dawn painted the sky pink and gold over Long Island Sound. I met him in the foyer, and the sight of him stole my breath. His shirt was torn, blood spattering the fabric, a cut above his eyebrow, already cleaned but still angry red, knuckles scraped raw, but his eyes, when they found mine, held nothing but relief and something deeper, hunger mixed with tenderness. Camilla. He crossed the space between us in 3 strides, pulling me into his arms with desperate strength. His face buried in my hair, breathing me in like I was air after drowning. I kept my promise. I came back. You did. My hands roamed his back, his shoulders, confirming he was real and whole. What happens to Kenji now? Hiroshi is on his way to collect him. We have him secured, unharmed. I kept my word on that too. He pulled back enough to cut my face, thumbs stroking my cheeks. But first, I need you to know something. When we stormed that warehouse, when bullets started flying and everything turned chaotic, all I could think was that if something happened to me, you'd never know how completely you own me. Tears blurred my vision. Alessandro, let me finish. His voice dropped, intimate and raw. I've spent 10 years as Don Bellavita. 10 years putting the family first, making calculated decisions, treating love as a liability I couldn't afford. Then you walked into my restaurant, refused to be humiliated, and looked at that money on the floor like picking it up would cost you something more valuable than pride, your dignity, your sense of self. And I was lost. He kissed me then, deep and claiming and achingly tender, poured everything he couldn't say into the pressure of his lips against mine, the way his hands trembled slightly as they held my face. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. I love you, Camilla Torres. Completely. Absolutely. In ways that terrify me because I finally understand what I have to lose. You won't lose me. I gripped his wrists, anchoring us together. I'm here. I'm yours. And you're mine. Always. He kissed me again. Softer this time. A promise sealed. Now come. Hiroshi will be here soon, and I need you to see how this ends. An hour later, a convoy of black cars arrived. Hiroshi Yamamoto stepped out of the lead vehicle, and I understood immediately why he commanded respect. 55 but looking older, silver threading his black hair, traditional suit immaculate. His face was carved from stone and disappointment. This was a man who'd built an empire on honor and discipline, watching his son destroy everything he'd tried to teach. Alessandro met him in the study. I sat nearby, present but quiet, as we'd agreed, witnessing but not participating, understanding my role. Hiroshi looked at his son, bound to a chair, defiant even in defeat. The disgust in the older man's eyes was palpable. Then he turned to Alessandro, bowing slightly. Respect between equals. I thank you for not killing him, Bellavita. though I'm not certain he deserves the mercy. We had an agreement. Alessandro's voice was formal, controlled. Your son violated codes we both hold sacred, but he's still your blood that has brought nothing but shame. Hiroshi's English was precise. Each word weighted. The monastery in Kyoto will either break him or rebuild him. If he returns unchanged, he will not return to my house. They discussed terms with the efficiency of men who understood each other perfectly. Alessandro would pay compensation to the families of the 2 Russian mercenaries killed in the confrontation, 50,000 each. Blood money, but necessary to avoid retaliation from the Bratva. Hiroshi would owe the Bellavita family a favor, unspecified and open-ended, a debt of honor that might be called in tomorrow or 10 years from now. Then came the condition I'd been waiting for, the public apology. Alessandro said. At Bella Notte, tomorrow night, both families present to witness it. Kenji's head snapped up, face twisting with rage. I won't. You will. Hiroshi's voice cut like a blade. Or you will be dead to me. No monastery, no second chance, just exile and disgrace. The silence stretched. Then Kenji's shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of him. Cowardice and self-preservation winning over pride. I'll do it. The words emerged bitter. Defeated. The next evening I stood in Bella Notte wearing the navy dress from our first real dinner, Alessandro's hand warm against the small of my back. The restaurant had been cleared except for key members of both families. Marco stood near the kitchen, face carefully neutral. Sophia sat at a nearby table, offering me encouraging smiles. Kenji entered with his father, looking smaller somehow. Diminished. His expensive suit couldn't hide the defeat in his posture, the shame radiating from every line of his body. He approached where I stood with Alessandro, stopped 3 feet away, and slowly, mechanically, bowed. Deep and formal, holding the position longer than seemed comfortable. I am sorry. He spoke first in Japanese, the words flowing with ritual formality, then switched to English. I was arrogant, cruel, and unworthy of basic humanity. I disrespected you in this place, treated you as less than human because I believed my name and money made me untouchable. I was wrong. You showed me grace I did not deserve when you refused to lower yourself to my level. I ask your forgiveness, though I do not merit it. I vow to learn from this shame, to become a man worthy of the honor my father has tried to teach me. The restaurant was utterly silent. Every eye watched, witnessing this moment. The humiliation of a spoiled heir. The dignity of a woman who'd refused to be broken. I looked at Alessandro. He nodded slightly. My choice. My terms. I accept your apology, Kenji Yamamoto. My voice carried clearly in the silence. Use this mistake to become a better man. Learn that power without honor is just tyranny wearing expensive clothes. Relief flickered across his face, quickly suppressed. He bowed again, then retreated to his father's side. They left without another word, taking with them the threat that had hung over my life for weeks. The moment they were gone, Alessandro pulled me close, kissing me in front of everyone, claiming me publicly, completely. When he pulled back, his eyes blazed with pride. You are magnificent. I learned from the best. He took my hand, addressed the room. Tonight marks the end of a threat and the beginning of something better. Thank you all for bearing witness. Then he led me from the restaurant to the car waiting outside, and we drove not to Manhasset, but to his penthouse in Manhattan, the private space I'd never seen. His true home. The elevator opened directly into the apartment, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights, but I barely noticed the view. Alessandro's hands were in my hair, his mouth on mine, years of control finally shattering. I love you. He breathed the words against my lips between kisses. My reason. My heart. Mine. Yours. I pulled him closer, needing no space between us. Always yours. We made love with desperate intensity. Every touch a promise, every kiss a vow. He was reverent and passionate by turns, worshipping my body like I was something sacred while claiming me with possessive need. And when we finally lay tangled together, hearts still racing, he held me like he'd never let go. Marry me. The words emerged rough, unplanned, Not because of obligation or protection or politics. Because I want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life. Because you make me want to be more than just Don Bellavita. You make me want to be just Alessandro. The man who loves you. Tears spilled over. Happy and overwhelming. Yes. He kissed each tear away. Then my lips. Sealing the promise. The weeks that followed blurred together in the best way. Alessandro introduced me to key members of his family, watching with barely concealed pride as I held my own in conversations about business and territory. Vincent continued my self-defense training until I could disarm an attacker with confidence. I had dinner with the capos and their wives, learning the unwritten rules of this world I'd chosen. Mom continued improving, her strength returning daily. Sophia became the sister I'd never had, teaching me how to navigate society functions, and which families were allies versus those who required careful distance. And through it all, Alessandro was there, in the quiet moments and the chaotic ones, teaching me, protecting me, loving me with an intensity that should have been frightening but just felt right. 3 months after that night at Bella Notte, I stood in my penthouse bathroom staring at a positive pregnancy test. Alessandro's child growing inside me, our future taking shape in ways I'd never imagined possible. When I told him, he dropped to his knees, pressing his face against my still flat stomach, and cried. This powerful, dangerous man, undone by joy and hope and the promise of the family we were creating together. I love you, he whispered against my skin. Both of you. More than I knew was possible. And I knew, despite everything, despite the danger and complexity and madness of this world, we would be okay. Because love, real love, was worth fighting for. Worth walking through fire for. Worth everything. 3 months later, I stood in the kitchen of Bella Notte during lunch prep, reviewing the new wellness menu I'd developed. Manager of Nutritional Development. The title still felt surreal, printed on business cards that bore my name beneath the restaurant's elegant logo. Alessandro had acquired full ownership of Bella Notte a month ago, but the promotion had been earned through months of work creating healthy options that didn't sacrifice the flavors the restaurant was known for. Marco squeezed my shoulder as he passed. The salmon dish is selling out every night. You've got a gift, Camilla. I smiled, warmth spreading through my chest. This was my dream, realized in ways I'd never imagined possible. Not my own cafe yet, but a foundation. A beginning. Life had settled into a rhythm that felt both normal and extraordinary. Alessandro and I lived in the Manhattan penthouse, close enough that I could walk to work on nice days. Mom had moved into a beautiful apartment on the Upper West Side, her cancer in remission, her strength returning daily. We had dinner together twice a week, and she'd started volunteering at a cancer support center, helping others navigate the maze of treatments and insurance battles she'd survived. Sophia had become the sister I'd never had. We met for coffee, went shopping, attended charity galas together, where I learned to navigate the complex social dynamics of Alessandro's world. The other wives had accepted me cautiously at first, then with genuine warmth once they realized I had no interest in playing power games. I was Alessandro's partner, not his accessory. Vincent had declared my self-defense training complete 2 weeks ago, though we still practiced once a week. I could disarm an attacker, break holds, protect myself. Knowledge I prayed I'd never need but carried with quiet confidence. There were still dangers, of course. A new player had moved into Brooklyn territory, testing boundaries, probing for weaknesses. Alessandro handled it with the same calculated precision he applied to everything, never bringing the violence home, but never hiding the reality either. We'd learned to balance honesty with protection, trust with wisdom. But today, none of that mattered. Because today, I held a secret that would change everything. The pregnancy test sat in my purse, taken during my break, positive and undeniable. Alessandro's child growing inside me. Our future taking physical form. I hadn't planned to tell him tonight. Had wanted to find the perfect moment. Create something special. But the words burned inside me. Too big to contain. He picked me up after my shift, as he often did when his schedule allowed. The sight of him leaning against his car, dark jeans and a leather jacket, made my heart skip like it had that first night. Some things never changed. "How was your day?" He kissed me, slow and thorough, not caring about the people walking past. "Good. Productive. Yours?" "Long, tedious meetings about territory agreements." He opened my door, hand at my back as I slid in. But better now. We drove through Manhattan, the city lights beginning to glow as dusk fell. I studied his profile. This man who'd defended me, claimed me, loved me with an intensity that still took my breath away. Father of my child, my future husband. We'd set a wedding date for 2 months from now. Small ceremony at the Manhasset estate, just family and close friends. Nothing ostentatious. Just us, promising forever in front of people who mattered. "Alessandro?" My hand found his on the center console, fingers intertwining. "Yes, amore mio? I'm pregnant." The car swerved slightly. He corrected immediately, pulling over to the side of the road with quick, precise movements. The engine idled as he turned to face me fully, eyes wide with shock. "Say that again. I'm pregnant. About 6 weeks, I think. I took 3 tests today. All positive." For a moment, he just stared. Then his hand lifted, trembling slightly, cupping my face with exquisite gentleness. "A baby. Our baby." Tears spilled over before I could stop them. "I know it's fast. We're not even married yet. And with everything happening in Brooklyn," he silenced me with a kiss, pouring everything he felt into the press of his lips against mine. When he pulled back, his own eyes were wet. "I love you. Both of you." His hand slid to my stomach, resting there with reverent care. So much it terrifies me, but also makes me want to be better than I am. To build a world where our child can grow up safe and loved. "We will." I covered his hand with mine. Together. He drove us home in charged silence, his hand never leaving my knee. Once inside the penthouse, he pulled me close, holding me like I was something infinitely precious. "Marry me," he murmured against my hair. "Not in 2 months. Soon. As soon as we can arrange it. I want you to be my wife before you start showing. Want our child born knowing their parents are bound by every law and tradition that exists." "Yes." I laughed through tears. "Yes, of course yes." 8 weeks later, I stood in the library of the Manhasset estate, Sophia adjusting my veil with gentle hands. The dress was simple ivory silk, elegant without being ostentatious, with room for the slight swell of my stomach that had just begun to show. "Ready?" Sophia smiled, her own eyes suspiciously bright. More than ready. Mom waited outside the library, looking healthier than she had in years. She took my hands, squeezed gently. "Your father would be so proud of you, sweetheart. The woman you've become, the life you've built. The courage you showed in choosing love despite the risks. Thank you for supporting this. For understanding. How could I not? Alessandro makes you happier than I've ever seen you. And he loves you with everything he has." She kissed my cheek. "Now let's get you married." The ceremony took place in the garden overlooking Long Island Sound. Sunset painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and gold. 40 guests, all family or close friends. Vincent stood as Alessandro's best man, Sophia as my maid of honor. But I only had eyes for Alessandro. He stood beneath an arch of white roses, wearing a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, and the expression on his face when I appeared stole my breath. Love and awe and possession and tenderness all mixed together in a look that promised forever. The vows were traditional, spoken in English and Italian, binding us by every law that mattered. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, Alessandro kissed me like it was the first time, and the 1000th, sealing a promise we'd both fought hard to reach. Later, after dinner and dancing and congratulations, we stood on the terrace overlooking the water. His hand rested on my stomach, protective and loving, feeling for movement that wouldn't come for weeks yet. "What are you thinking?" he asked softly. I leaned back against him, safe and warm, and completely certain of my choice. That 6 months ago, I was just a waitress trying to survive. A man tried to humiliate me. Another man defended me. And my life changed completely. For better or worse? Definitely better. I turned in his arms. meeting those green eyes that had captured me from the first. Your world is dangerous, Alessandro, but it's also filled with fierce loyalty, absolute love, and unexpected honor. You've shown me that strength comes in many forms. That real love doesn't ignore danger, it faces it together. I would burn this entire city for you. He said it simply, like stating fact. You and our child are my entire world now. I know. I stretched up, kissing him softly. And I wouldn't trade this life, this love, for anything. Not safety, not normalcy, nothing. You're mine. Forever. And you're mine. Camilla Bellavita. He smiled against my lips. Always. 6 months ago, I thought I understood my life. Understood the limits of what I could hope for. Dream of. Become. Then Alessandro had grabbed an arrogant air by the collar, looked at me with those intense green eyes, and destroyed every assumption I'd made about my future. He'd saved me. But really, we'd saved each other. And as we stood on that terrace with our future literally growing between us, the city lights beginning to glow in the distance, I knew with absolute certainty that this was just the beginning, that whatever challenges came, whatever dangers we'd face them together. Because some things were worth fighting for, worth risking everything for. Love, real and true and absolute, was worth it all.